continuing our coverage of today's sentencing of Raj Rajaratnam, the central figure in what U.S. investigators called the largest hedge fund insider trading case in U.S. history. Here with me in studio is former Assistant U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Smith, who concentrates on white-collar and corporate investigations and complex litigation. And from Chicago, Andrew Stoltmann, a securities lawyer who has represented over 1,000 investors in lawsuits against banks and brokerage firms. Gentlemen, welcome to Bottom Line. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Mr. Smith, let me start to you. Does the sentence fit the crime?
I think it does. I mean, he caught a break, there's no question, but it's still the largest and longest sentence in an insider trading case in history, and I guarantee he's not feeling lucky today.
Mr. Stoltmann, what message does this send?
Well, I think it sends a pretty clear message. It is indeed the longest sentence for insider trading. I think it sends a pretty clear message that if you get caught, you're going to go to jail. Now, I'm disappointed it's not a longer sentence, but 11 years is still a pretty long time.
Why were you disappointed it wasn't longer?
Well, because he faced up to 24.5 years in prison, and I think that there were a number of factors that indicated this wasn't a one-time insider trading scandal, but rather it went on over about a 7-year period. And, you had multiple cooperating witnesses. You had Mr. Rajaratnam on audio tape, and that through a wiretap, which is really, really rare in insider trading. So if he didn't get the book thrown at him, I don't think anybody is ever going to face a 19.5 to 24-year sentence.
Mr. Smith, the sentence, how does it compare historically with what we've seen in other insider trading cases?
Well, it is the longest insider trading sentence in history, so he's still at the top. That's a Hall of Fame you don't want to be in. And quite frankly, the kind of sentence that the government was talking about, 19.5 to 24.5 years in the federal system, is almost never seen except in cases of kidnapping and murder. And so although there were aggravating circumstances, he definitely corrupted a wide network of people. Given what we learned today, that he's about to have a kidney transplant, I think the judge probably did what he should have done, which is balance compassion and a very strict sentence.
Well, Rajaratnam's lawyers argued that the wiretap should not have been used at trial because the federal government did not disclose some key facts about the investigation. Was this at its core a RICO case, which is usually associated with organized crime? Was this an organized crime?
Well, it was treated like an organized crime case, yes. I mean, it wasn't charged as a RICO case, but the government used techniques that historically are used in racketeering and terrorism cases. They were very aggressive with witnesses. They caused them to flip, which is the term that's applied to mob rats when they testify against their kingpin bosses. And they use wiretaps and body wires to obtain evidence, real-time evidence of Rajaratnam's conversations that they never have in insider trading cases.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, for a very long time, we've treated insider trading exclusively like it's a civil offense, and it's not. It's a criminal offense, and there are real victims in it. Now, I agree there may not be an identifiable victim like there is in a robbery or in a murder, but, you have all these investors that have to pay the artificially inflated price because a hedge fund manager gets to take advantage of them. And so I have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with wiretaps and putting the squeeze on witnesses to cooperate.
Now, Mr. Stoltmann, let me ask you, just 2 years ago, Raj Rajaratnam managed $7 billion, a $7 billion hedge fund at the Galleon Group. He was one of the wealthiest hedge fund managers in the world. That fall from grace was swift and it was humiliating. I have to ask a pedestrian question. How does something like this happen? How does someone who was talented and brilliant get it in their head they can leave a paper or email trail and not get caught?
I think one word, and I think that's greed. And unfortunately, there have been many people who've said insider trading is rampant on Wall Street, at hedge funds included. So, I think it was just somebody who had a lot who wanted even more. So I think at the end of the day, it comes down to basic greed.
Is that it?
I think it's that, but it's more. I mean, I think you heard Rajaratnam quoted in one of the tapes in his own words saying the myth is bigger than the reality. And I think with these kind of hyper-competitive and hyper-successful people, it's money, no question, but it's always something else, too. It's never enough. They always want to beat the market. They want to beat their peers in the hedge fund industry, and I think he wanted that edge.
Mr. Smith, prior to announcing the sentencing, the federal judge in this case, Richard Holwell, said, quoting here, his crimes and the scope of his crimes reflect reflect a virus in our business culture that needs to be eradicated. You know the saying that justice is blind, but unfortunately sometimes people are stupid. How do you eradicate this? How do you get rid of this? Was this sentence today strong enough to deter other people who may be thinking of going this route and engaging in illegal practices?
Well, it's a heck of a start. I mean, I don't think anybody who goes to work wearing a suit and tie is looking on an 11-year sentence as a light sentence. He's, under the federal system, going to have to serve 85% of that time.
If he didn't have medical problems, would this sentence have been more severe?
I think it would have, yes. I think from what I heard of what the judge said, the need of the kidney transplant was a significant factor in his decision.
Mr. Stoltmann, is this enough to deter future insider traders, anybody who might even be thinking of trying to game the system?
Well, it is certainly a start, but I just think a 19 to 24-year sentence really would have hit people who are contemplating engaging in insider trading like a 2x4 across the face. So it is a start, but I would have liked to have seen a much longer sentence.
Mr. Smith, was this a watershed moment for the federal government? Did they have to get this win and get this sentence?
Well, I think they did, and they got it. I mean, it's the culmination of what's been really a multi-year process. Remember, up to this point, they have more than 24 convictions that reach into corporate America, that reach into the consultant networks, hedge funds, investment banks, and this is about as wide a scope and as deep a reach as you're going to see.
Mr. Stoltmann, if I might ask in our last 30 seconds, is enough being done in terms of business schools in this country to teach young people who want to go to Wall Street and see the dollar signs? Is this enough to say to them there's a right way and a wrong way to do this?
I don't know if this is going to be enough. I mean, there's a compensation system that really incentivizes this sort of risk-taking, arguably this sort of illegal conduct. So I don't know if it's going to be enough, but like we've said before, it's certainly a good start.
Oh, risk-taking, yeah, no doubt. Andrew Stoltmann joining us from Chicago. Jeffrey Smith, the former U.S. Assistant Attorney in Newark, New Jersey, joining us here on set. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you both.